What's up, Flick Connection? This is Darren here to help you get more out of movies, and today we're going to talk about some of the best movies currently available on Netflix, and we're going to talk mostly about movies in the crime genre. Now, the crime genre happens to be one of my personal favorites. Some of my favorite movies of all time are crime movies. Movies like Goodfellas, which I have mentioned on the channel very recently. I'll put a link in the description below. You can go back and watch that video, as well as many others I put out on this channel every single week. If you like that type of content and you start binge watching, definitely click the subscribe button and click the little bell. That way you get notified when I put out a new video. Number 10 on my list is actually a classic. It's Scarface. The reason Scarface is at number 10 and not higher is because I think it is easily one of the most overrated movies of all time. For some reason, people think this movie is just amazing, and it's got a lot of really terrible elements in it, but it's pretty well made. I mean, it is a classic for a reason, so it deserves to be on this list. But, you know, Al Pacino gives an amazing performance, but he also just chews up the scenery, which he's known to do, and it does drag on kind of long. Is why I don't mean to just harp on this movie, but that's why it doesn't deserve to be higher on the list when a lot of people might think that it should. But it is still just so fun to watch. Speaking of movies that are fun to watch, I'm actually going with Bad Boys at number 9, which is Michael Bay's first big movie. Now, say what you will about Michael Bay, and I will be honest, I am not a fan. I do not like the Transformers movies. I fall asleep during them. They're boring. But early on in his career, Michael Bay, his movies are interesting. They're funny. The sequences are fun. His style hasn't been so played out. And it's something else about Michael Bay. The reason his style seems kind of hacky and played out is because it is so ripped off. That style where the camera is constantly moving, that just frenetic type of style, he developed that, and it really started with Bad Boys, which is why I've got that movie on this list. At number 8, I'm going with something a little lesser known than the previous two, with Kill the Irishman. This is a really good, small mob movie. It's interesting. It's based on a true story about an Irish hitman that basically just crossed the wrong guys, and essentially there was an open hit out on him for a very, very long time that went unsuccessful for an incredibly long time because this guy was so good. But if you like that genre, this is a must watch, and unfortunately it's a must watch a lot of people missed. It's also a good movie to watch in order to gear yourself up for The Irishman, which will be out on Netflix later this year, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring De Niro, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino's in it. It's going to be incredible. So this is a really good primer for that one. Number 7, I want to lighten things up with Hot Fuzz. Same creators as Shaun of the Dead, just a cult classic. In my opinion, Hot Fuzz is not as good, but for people that love action movies, Hot Fuzz is required viewing. It references movies in such a good way, specifically Bad Boys, which we've already talked about, as well as a bunch of other classics like Point Break, and the list goes on and on. It's directed by Edgar Wright, who also did Baby Driver last year. If you enjoyed Baby Driver and you've not yet discovered Wright's other films, Hot Fuzz is a good place to start. Most of you have seen Shaun of the Dead. At World's End is another one, all starring Simon Pegg. Essentially, Hot Fuzz is the middle of a trilogy Wright did with Simon Pegg. If you take Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and then At World's End, they're different characters, but those movies play really well together as a trilogy. Next up is a documentary called The Thin Blue Line. Now, this was released in 1988 and is just a really, really good story about the failures of the criminal justice system. It's about one particular case. It's about a murder. It's really interesting. If you liked Making a Murderer on Netflix, you will like this documentary. It's rare for documentaries documentaries to really hold up over decades, and this one does. This is a classic documentary directed by Errol Morris. Just really well done. The interviews are really captivating. The reenactments are really well shot. They're actually really just beautifully shot. It's just a really nice, solid piece, so I recommend watching it if you're into sort of true crime stories. And then if you like this recommendation, if you watch it and like it, I'd immediately recommend going to the series Documentary Now. It's a comedy series. Season 1, Episode 4 is a spoof of this documentary, and it is so well done. It's shot almost in the exact way, except the story's just sillier, the characters are goofy, but it looks and feels exactly like this very serious documentary. It's only about 20 minutes long, so there's a nice little bonus recommendation for you. And at number 5, it's going to be a repeat of one I've recommended recently, but so many of you responded to this well, I want to make sure everybody knows to go watch this while it's still on Netflix, and that's Wind River. This is one of the most overlooked movies of 2017. It's a first-time director, writer-director. He also wrote Hell or High Water, which I really liked, and he wrote Sicario. Really great writer, and he appears to be a pretty good director as well. Now, his directing skills, in my opinion, not as good as his writing, but all he can do is sharpen them from here. So I highly recommend Wind River. It's just a gritty detective story that just takes place out in the snow, and the mystery unfolds in just a really good way. This one is not going to change your life. It's not going to change the way you look at movies or anything like that. But if you've been looking for just a good, solid crime thriller, this one is just pitch perfect. At number 4, one of my all-time favorites, Training Day. This movie was just so classic. I remember when it came out, before I really started like mass collecting DVDs, I rented it like 3 or 4 times before I bought it. I don't know why. I liked it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and if I had trouble picking something out, I'm like, I know I'm going to enjoy watching 2 hours of Training Day, and it really is a modern classic. Like, it was so well done at the time when it came out, but it really just holds up. It still looks great, the cinematography's great, the story's great, the acting's great. Everyone has seen this movie, but if it's been a long time since you've seen it, you could do worse than spending 2 hours watching Training Day again. At number 3, Academy Award nominated movie, LA Confidential. This one, in my opinion, is also a modern classic. It really gets overlooked. When people talk about it, they talk about it very affectionately, as it is a very good film, but people don't talk about it enough. This is one that I know not as many people have seen as Training Day, and they should. If you've never seen this one, this needs to be at the top of your list. It's just a great LA cop movie. It's just a throwback. Russell Crowe's incredible in it. And it's gritty, but it's got that nice vintage feel. You don't even really need to know what the story is. If you're into the way this movie looks and you want to watch a throwback movie like that, this one is so well done. It's really one of the better movies in its genre, and this genre is packed full of some of the best movies of all time. Speaking of some of the best movies of all time, our number 2 pick is Seven. Now, I just recently did a video on how to watch this movie where I break down just some of the interesting production elements as well as, kind of what the ending means. But this is one that you can watch at almost any time unless you're just in a mood where you don't want to feel disturbed. It's one of the darkest movies ever made, but it's still so accessible somehow. It really is, it's David Fincher's second movie, and really, as he puts it, his first movie, because it's the first movie where he was able to make what he wanted. It is a masterpiece. It really is. It's still one of his best films in a long list of great films. If somehow someone is watching this video and has never seen Seven, please do yourself a favor and go watch this movie. You've probably had the twist ruined for you. If you haven't, God bless you. Please go watch this movie. I'm not going to go on too much about it. If you want to know more about Seven, please watch the How to Watch video I did on it. I'll put a link in the description below. And number 1 happens to be one of my favorite movies of all time, probably easily in my top 10, and that is Michael Mann's Heat. Now, this is just a classic crime movie. Another one, if you haven't seen it in a long time, it's time to rewatch it. It just got added to Netflix. So did Seven. I recommend watching both of those really soon. But Heat is just a beautiful film, number one. Now, at the time that this came out, LA, it's filmed in LA. LA was notorious for just kind of being an ugly city. Just because there's a lot of concrete, it's basically, it's dry, there's not a lot of greenery, there's not a lot of color. So film-wise, it's really just kind of considered to be an ugly city, and it is beautiful in Heat. This movie has inspired so many other movies just in the way it looks, in the way it makes a city sort of come to life. The performances are amazing. There's scenes that are just complete classics in this one. Robert De Niro and Al Pacino both kill it, but the supporting cast is amazing. If you agree with my picks, let me know in the comments below. If you don't, let me know because I will read those as well. But I will keep making these videos as long as you keep watching them. But thanks for watching this one, and you will see me next time.